So far, all the charts that we've seen had columns and rows of tables. But if we use the data in the following table, which lists drive-through order accuracy at popular fast food chains, you'll notice that there are no totals. Assume that orders are randomly selected from those included in the table, and so we've included here a reminder that if there are no totals, that's your first step. If you see one of these on the homework, it might not remind you to find totals, so we wanted you to practice. Obviously, you can add the rows and the columns, and so the column for A would be a total, and you might write yourself a note, total 370, column B is 328, column C is 290, column D is 158, and then of course you're going to add up the row. For the accurate order, we get 1005, and for the non-accurate order, we get 141. And if you're doing this, here's where you can double check your math, because if you add up these two and you add up those four, you should get the same answer, which is going to be your total of totals, which is the most important number in the chart for us to make sure that we get right. So if you have a question like this in your homework, which you'll have a question like this in your homework, make sure that the first thing you do is find the totals. Part A says, if two different orders are selected, find the probability that both are from restaurant C. We've already seen that both is like another form of and, which means we're going to multiply. The only word that tells us to add is or. And if it doesn't say, we assume no replacement or without replacement. We assume that if we pick the first order, that we don't put it back in the mix. So the probability of choosing a C and another C, we'd start by saying 290 out of 1,146, because that's the probability of picking a C. And yay, we assume that we did. So when we go back to pick the next order, remember, we already took one of the C's out, so now we have 289 times 1,145. And obviously, you're going to want to put this in your calculator. For those of you that don't have the fraction buttons, I've already typed it in, so 290 divided by 1146, use your parentheses, 289 divided by 1145, and we get 0.0638. So usually we round these to 3 decimal places, 0.064. Here's another one, part B. If 3 different orders are selected, again, we assume no replacement, without replacement. Find the probability that they are all from restaurant D. All is another word that means and. We're going to multiply. So we're looking for the probability of D and another D and another D. So again, we start out with the totals. 158 of D out of 1,146. And if you want to pause this for a second, see if you can come up with the other two. If you're back, hopefully you realized you're just going to do 157, 1,145, and then 156, 1,144. Each time we're taking one out of the top, one out of the D, and also, of course, one out of the total. Now, when you go to type this in, some of you know how to use your calculators to find the fraction buttons, but the 84s, the 83s might not, but the 84s, if you do alpha and stat, or y equals up there, you see the n over d function, and you can press enter because it's already highlighted, or 1, and that gives you the fraction to be able to type in that way. You don't have to. You can use the parentheses like I did in the previous one, but I just wanted to show you that in case you didn't know that. And so 158, and just use your arrow keys to go from top to bottom, and then you can either use parentheses, or I'm just going to use my multiplication. Do the same thing. Alpha y equals, enter. Now 157 over 1145 hit your right arrow. Again, make sure that you get back to the middle cursor so that you're not just writing in the top or the bottom. And then 156 over 1144, and we get our answer. Again, if we're going to round to 3 decimal places, that would give us 0.003, and we're done.